You are listening to the Firecracker Podcast with Tony Rico.
All right. Hello, everybody. We're back in the studio in Firecracker Land, and today we've got Firecracker coach Manny Travieso. So, Manny, when I say your name, and so I've always been intrigued by the way that you speak, and it's just Latin accents and things like that. So I find myself wanting to say Manny Travieso. But here's the thing. My son tells me that I can't even do a Spanish accent very well. But I'm always drawn to the name. But welcome to the studio. I'm glad you came in today.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, no, it's hard to actually get people to pronounce my name correctly.
Tell me your full name, first name.
Manuel Travieso.
Did you hear that, people?
Yeah, that's my acting name is Manolo Travieso.
Listen to that.
So when I get my, and yeah, if I want to, and it's funny because I have one of my girls say, Coach, did you do a voiceover for Toyota? I'm like, yeah. And it sounds like, yeah, Toyota Tundra. Like the whole thing. And it's different. So, I think I heard you, Coach. I'm like, yeah, well, you know what? Someone has to pay the bills.
Yeah, that's it. Well, and so we find all kinds of things out about Firecracker coaches because parents and players see us as guys just trying to help the team and get us where we need to go. But for me, the interesting aspect are the lives outside of softball. And so if we go back a little quickly on your history, if I guess, is it 5 years?
5 years.
So 2014, 15?
So I think, 14, 15. I think I'm waiting for my green jacket or whatever.
Well, 5 years is like 15 to 20. So it's 5 years on the calendar, but it should feel like longer than 5 years.
It's like a Hollywood marriage.
Absolutely, yeah. So we should give you a coin or something like that, right?
I think you made it through.
Noted. I got some ideas down here. That's a really good idea. So the learning curve in 5 years. So you are in our... Well, it started off as the Media City Firecrackers.
Yes.
Right?
Right away, we realized when we went out, people were like, where's Media City? What's Media City?
And we'd all heard that term on television shows.
Correct. And,
right?
And you see it all the time, in Hollywood, Pasadena, Glendale, San Fernando Valley, all those areas over there, you do have, Media City Hospital, Media City this, Media City that. So we thought, hey, how creative it is. The problem is that people did not know where we are. Like
right.
Media City
did an actual Media
really
City.
Kind of
they're Googling on their maps for Media City.
Media City, yeah. It's not like England Empire. We need to have some kind of legislator go, okay, we are officially putting this into the map.
It's something that I remember hearing before a television show from Media City, and then they would introduce the show or something like that. Exactly. So brought it in as Media City Firecrackers, and then recently...
We did a brand change. We went Hollywood.
Now I love it.
Hollywood. I know we had that in mind before because our girls, Hollywood, it is we were always concerned about the congestion of the traffic. It was like, we don't want to say we're actually in Hollywood because no one can get in or out of Hollywood. So let's not.
That's from the inside because you drive there, right?
Exactly. Yes. So, I mean, literally, no traffic is 5 minutes from Burbank. Traffic is an hour and a half.
Right.
So it's just ridiculous. But, we said, you know what? I talked to, our vice president of our organization within our organization.
Who is?
Adam Glickman. Mm-hmm. He's a fantastic guy, great kid. He has a great kid. I mean, it's a really great person to have. He comes from the Wilshire world in the sense of park and
his professional experience, how would you describe that and what he does for a living? And he's...
Well, he's I think he's one of those people. I do think he's a CIA agent, really, but he doesn't tell us. I think he's more of a
lot more layers than that pleasant, well-mannered.
Totally,
I'm getting that because I'm on my own way. I'm trying to scrape away at the layers to get some insight and some advice from him.
Yeah, he's a smart guy, and he's surround himself with also smart people, which is you can tell a lot by someone who does that. And they know, hey, I have smart people in this area and this area. And
so you spoke with him about the
change, and he agreed. In fact, he actually thought about that, and hey, we should do this. And he was very actually. I digress. We were doing our pins, and we put Media City with the Hollywood sign, and he said, "Let's not do Media City. Let's put Hollywood, California." And we're like, it's a pin. Why not? And that's how the whole thing started. You know what? Let's change to the Hollywood. At least people know where we are, which is 5 minutes from Pasadena. We're truly in Burbank, Mission Hills area, which is 10 minutes from everywhere. But it's a little more recognizable.
Because the connotation or the association from people outside isn't from the inside where you deal with traffic and, their perception of Hollywood versus what it really is when people go to Hollywood and you drive around the streets. It's completely different. So from the outside, they might think that movie
They'll
stars
see
just
Brad
live
Pitt
next door to
walking
you, and you're
around.
having breakfast with them, and in the morning and things like that. So to
Which
me,
is true.
it's a great call.
Which is true.
But you never know.
Patty and I have gone to dinner and literally has set 2 seats from Angelina and Brad when they were together.
Yeah.
Literally.
So it does
and there
happen.
are 18 kids too.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
It definitely happens in Hollywood.
So for what Hollywood is and stands for, and where, I mean, there's, again, so many even layers to the story of Hollywood, but people come to Hollywood for their dreams to be made, different things like that. So it's been about a year, the rebranding?
Yes, a little bit. Yeah, exactly a year, and it's worked out really well because no one asks us. In fact, we get people asking, like umpires, say, "Hey, they've seen us, our Firecrackers Hollywood." And say, "Hey, I would like to order." I'm like, "Well, next batch we'll talk. We'll have this information.
Right.
Like, I just want to have that. It says Hollywood."
See, there you go.
Which is like, it's okay.
Noted.
So it's definitely working.
Right.
It's definitely working.
Right.
So
There's a draw to it. Now you merge the two, and each have its own draw. So I think it's great. So really, really happy, and it's going well, and it's being received well by the teams. And
it definitely has. We were going back and forth recently, and like, do we call it ourselves Hollywood Firecrackers or we call it Firecrackers Hollywood? And it was recently decided it has to be Firecrackers Hollywood because it's when you have the list. You're part of the Hollywood.
Right.
If you're Hollywood, like, this is some kind of team.
No one's going to look for H.
Yeah,
no one's going to
H
look
is
under the H's for Hollywood Firecrackers.
Exactly.
So when someone's looking for the list of firecracker teams in a tournament, and then all of a sudden you're putting your something up, it's
so we
hard
have to.
find.
So we thought about a Hollywood Firecracker team. That way we're in front of everybody. But still, it doesn't really work out.
That's so there was a plumber. It's a quick little story. There was a plumber that had a company called AD Do. And it was AD Do Plumbing, but he created the AD Do for the first page in the phone book. Yeah. So as soon as you found it, he was the first one. He went on to do very, very well. So it was
that's marketing.
Yeah,
that's
marketing.
Marketing is key to everything.
That's stuff that I'm learning all the time, not just hitting
and
ground
you'll
balls.
continue to learn
because
it changes dramatically.
So I wanted to ask you. So we were talking a little bit when you walked in that softball for so many people is winning championships, scholarships, recruiting, and that's big. That's a big part of what we do. But what I really like about your story and the story with Hollywood Firecrackers and what we're talking about with the international trip is the diversity, and that really you can bring in so many other things, into softball. But this weekend, you got to go back to a qualifier in Arizona. And again, I call it in the pit a little bit because these are intense competitive tournaments that everyone's trying to qualify. Mm-hmm. For every team that qualifies or every 2 teams that qualify, there's 48 that didn't. So it's part of this big story. And I always think about the car ride home for the teams that it doesn't go well. So you got to experience a qualifier in Arizona this weekend with Firecrackers Humble.
Yes.
Right? And so,
which is funny how, I met Humble because of the Cuban trip. He was my assistant coach when we went to Havana, Cuba to play the national Cuban team. And I got to know him not only as a person, because we spent quite a bit of time in a different country. We were taking care of these girls.
Right.
So he was one of those people that I'm like, you know what? I trust this guy. This is somebody that I feel comfortable sending up players here and there too. And that kind relationship, we really call them, our girls know them as their sister team.
Right.
A true sister team. They know each other.
Right,
We have practice together. Once in a while we come over here. Sometimes they go over there. And we have that, kind of truly friendship.
Well, we talk about the culture. We talk about in the Firecracker organization, building these relationships over time and developing these cultures. It's a deeper bond. And I want people to understand that, listen, you're in competitive championships. You're doing all these things for your teams. But what I really like are all the things that your region and your team stand for. So I don't want people to think that you're not qualifying, you're not doing that stuff. But this was that even with Coach Humble, he does a really good job and he has a solid operation, but he's not all about the intensity of we have to and boom. So
and I think that's what we definitely
good balance to it.
We definitely do. I mean, obviously we both want to win. We both want to be able to be competitive. We want to be with the big dogs. But at the end, I have a different view. And he kind of sees my views, which is like I am more about the experience. And I think I'm from the school that you learn more from your failures than you learn more from from winning, and that just makes you a stronger player, coach, so on and so forth. And that's something that being able to have that communication and that open communication with him is that hey he had some kind of injuries and stuff. Hey I need Lily, which is my daughter, to go over there. I'm like, hey, no problem. Yeah, that's fine. And it's just the experience itself is just great. And one of the girls actually also was helping him out. It was a Tolly Lockett from Arizona, who was one of my players. She was 14 when she went to Cuba with me for the first time, and her dad. And they keep reminding me how amazing the experience. And I'm like, yeah, it's unbelievable. And I talked to Humble about it. We still kind of like can't believe that.
Yeah.
You know, we still were able to break that barrier.
Yeah.
And to be able to be the first travel team to play the national team over there.
Yes.
And get our butts kicked, but in a really nice way.
Yes, right.
You know, we had like 3 or 4 innings.
So I'll tell you what.
Scores, by the way.
Well, okay. So let's get into that. Yeah. So you had an idea, a vision, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And this was because of a relationship that you had already had. Like, how did the idea of taking a team over?
I'm not a big fan of dropping names. You know that I'm very. So I have some connections. I had some people that I know in the MLB world. So as soon as I saw them going to Cuba, and I saw Puig going back to Cuba and playing over there, where he actually originally, left not in the greatest ways.
And you are from?
I was born in Puerto Rico.
Right?
Yeah, and my dad is Cuban. And so to me, it was always like, well, this is an interesting place. Hopefully one day it opens, and I would love to see it where my grandparents were born. Long story short, I start connecting the dots. I did mention it to you before anything. I said, hey, what do you think of this? And you gave me like, hey, go for it. If you can make it happen, go for it. I'm like, great. So I started making some calls, and I wrote a few letters, and little by little, we were able to contact the person in charge that helped the MLB players' families to be able to add to the actual trip to where they originally went. It's a little interesting thing because at that time, you really cannot go with your family that much. You got to go. You're going to do something. You're going to go over there to do something specific. So it's not like you can bring your neighbor, your friends,
vacation or right.
Yeah, they don't want to. Yeah, it's more like cultural. So I was able to speak to her, and she's like, "Yeah, we can make it. I just got to write a letter and let's see what happens." So Cuba Deportes, they were very intrigued by it. They're like, "Oh, what is travel ball? What is this?" They've gotten colleges. A few colleges have gone there to visit, but not to play the national team. And we were like, that's our goal. I said, no, we want to play the national team. So we were able to put together, as soon as I got the letter from the lady, said, yeah, Homeland said it's good because they got your okay. So you just put the team together and we can travel. And that was like, oh, wow, that's a reality. So let's make it happen. And I was able to, I wanted to really make it a firecracker team. I really did.
Right.
I wanted to be all firecrackers. In fact, they know the word over there. And in fact, this is interesting. If you get to see, if Cuba is lucky enough to actually make it to the softball Olympics, because they still have to qualify. If they do, you will see them with a lot of red helmets. They're very familiar.
Ooh, yeah.
Very familiar red helmets
Right.
that they're going to have from our team. Of course, the F is gone to the C.
Right.
But it's very familiar stuff. You're going to be seeing a lot of that.
Right. So the first trip, this will be your third coming up.
Well, I'm not going to go this year because they're actually in Peru at that time.
So they're on the road for something else. Okay, so you took a firecracker team there a couple years ago.
Yeah.
You didn't know what to expect.
Not at all.
So...
Not at all. I keep telling families and coaches that would call me, so are they going to come back? What's going to happen? I mean, this is a communist country.
Sure, right.
So you don't
obvious concerns, sure.
So, I mean, I've heard from people. I heard from my friends that went originally, and I heard from the travel agent, oh, no, extremely safe. It's safer than here, safer. But again, I mean, you never know. You never know until you actually experience it.
So as soon as you land, what did you experience then? Was it hospitality? Was it...
Right away, of course, going with this company, Marimar Travels, they were pretty much in charge. So we didn't have to make any kind of line. They knew who we were. They took pictures of us. The actual press was there, so they took pictures of us. Of course, they call us the USA team, and we were very clear letting them know we are a travel team.
But now you realize you're representing the whole country. So in our minds, you're firecrackers going over to see Cuba. But as soon as you realize we were representing all 50 states.
And this is what's interesting about that. I feel very comfortable because the girls that we had and the girls that we have, they're well behaved. They're great kids. They know how to behave.
Right. Well, man, which is important.
At the young age, I had a 14-year-old. Tolly was the youngest one in Arizona. A 14-year-old, she would behave professionally. In fact, the head coach literally told us at the end, these girls, although they're young, they behave even more professional than some of our girls. They are so well put, they are, so respectful. They know the game. They understand the game.
And you had a pretty young team the first time, right?
Yeah.
You had some, so they probably averaged out at about 15?
16.
16.
Yeah, 16.
And they were playing the Cuban national team, which averaged at what?
35.
Yeah.
32, 35, I would say.
Yeah.
And but the first game, when we first arrived, it was clear that it was a different world. It was beautiful, it was hot, but it was a different world.
And you say first arrived at the airport?
At the airport
first
of Havana.
Right. Okay, so now even just landing, that's a different
Just
experience.
landing, you're looking outside, it's all green and everything, but you see only one building, and it's kind of like really not that pretty, and that's the actual main airport. And like, whoa, this is interesting. So we got
So you're like going back in time already?
Completely. And as soon as we got out, it was all Russian cars, all cars like the one I picture I brought you, and it's like going back in time. But one thing that I noticed is the smiles. Everybody had a smile. Everybody was happy. Nobody had...
So you were well received.
Well received. And they behave. You can tell that their behavior is very, very, very serene. Very...
Excitement and curiosity from them.
I think more...
because there's not a lot of interaction, right? So.
Yeah, I think they saw, there's all these white girls coming in.
Yeah, it's like the first time someone sees blonde hair. Not like that's the first time.
In a way.
It's just stuff like that, right?
In a way, it is odd. Yeah, in a way. So we did see a lot of anti-U.S. propaganda the first time around when we saw
politics everywhere.
Of course, and we see that in the U.S. sometimes, actually.
Right, sure.
But over there, that was like innocent Spanish, so none of the girls really took it personal, and they did not treat us any different. But was it safe? That was the biggest thing to us. Was it safe? Is it safe?
Right.
Are we going to have a good time? And it was an amazing time, obviously, but it was extremely safe. There's no guns in the streets. There's like really nobody, I guess.
And you could feel that.
You can feel it. And they felt it right away because the girls, we were at the Hotel Nacional, the National Hotel over there, and around 1 o'clock in the morning, it was like a party outside, and then they had Coach Humble didn't like. There's some girls that went, so Coach Humble went with them, and they were just dancing and drinking everything, but it was like 1 o'clock in the morning outside, extremely safe. And that's something like, wow, I think that set the tone to where we feel very safe here.
You feel their culture.
You feel the culture, you feel very safe. And it was just, we knew like, okay, we were okay. Everything's okay. Everything's going to be okay. Looking forward to playing the game. That was the next thing, something that they are familiar with.
And so was it the next day you went out to the field now and you started experience?
The next day. We talked to, the day before, we had a talk at the hotel, how the games were going to go. We're going to play 2, 2, and 2. 2 games for 3 days in a row. And then we have 1 day off and go to the beach. But they were basically told us that we're not going to play the national team because the national team is the national team. They will not play us. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, but we're going to play the junior Olympic team. And we're like, oh, that's a bummer. Okay, hey, looking forward to playing the junior Olympic team. Hey, that's our age group in a way,
right?
19U, which is how they consider it. And I'm like, okay, so we pounded them, and the national team was sitting outside.
Okay, but let's go back to, it wasn't like an all-turf field in a stadium that you were playing at.
No, it was insane. It was
because I want our people to realize that listen, we have amazing things available to us nowadays, but sometimes you get raw.
Let me paint this picture. If you've played at a friendly, think about the worst friendly complex,
toughest condition
you can,
and that would be the best.
That would be better than what we were.
Right.
Now, having said that, there was no holes. The bases were broken, but it was, you can tell that everything was
the integrity of
the actual field.
So they knew what it needed to be. It wasn't right.
Yeah, if it rained, you won't see a puddle.
Sure.
That's how even it is. That's where they practice.
They get that right.
Yeah. So that was
they know how the ball needs to bounce.
They do. Mm-hmm. They do. They definitely, and they know their field. But yeah, we were playing at, I guess is a special area in Havana where the Olympics, I believe in '94. Don't quote me on this one. But they were played, some kind of Olympics, Pan American games were played. Right. And it was a huge stadium, villas, everything, the soccer stadium, everything was huge.
Still in use?
No. That's what's interesting. And you hear stories when Olympics go to a country and then afterwards it's still in ruins.
Right.
That's what was. Like literally, everything was in ruins.
Right.
The streets were messed up. Everything was just not well kept. And
and what did they have resource-wise, like equipment-wise? Did you notice right away they didn't have a lot? They didn't have much, but
right away when we started meeting them, they had those. They had soccer cleats. A lot of them had soccer cleats. Some of them have just tennis shoes. Actually, a few of them had, the actual running shoes. They have spikes without the spikes, which still has some kind of traction, but they're very thin. So we didn't notice that right away. They only had they only had 4 helmets because again, they use this is their practice. So they're pretty stuff. It's only for games when they travel because they do have to kind of show that they are. They're professional.
Right. Up to a certain standard, right?
Yes. So they did have about 4 bats, 3 helmets only, because I remember when a girl was a third, somehow they had bases loaded. The girl third would not have a helmet.
Some of our girls have just that in their bat bag. One girl has 4 bats and 3 helmets. And,
exactly.
And again, I think that's important why we're talking about this so that people understand, because you think that what we know about Cuban baseball players, don't think that they don't have skills or they can't play the game because they don't have resources, because I think we get caught here thinking, I can't go to this class, or I don't have this bat, I can't hear whatever it is. And you just understand.
They find a way. You've heard this in baseball. How about, they learned the little beer caps and the little broomsticks. That's a very Dominican and Cuban thing to do. And hey, what's better to, hand coordination than a little thing that moves.
And I think a lot of people today still relate. It saddens me to think there might be a day when there's a generation of people go, they used to hit bottle caps and paper wads. We grew up now with things, but just because you can get so creative to develop the skills.
Here's my take on it. Within 5-10 years, someone, late night, you're going to be at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, this is the best way to learn how to hit. Take this little plastic thing that looks like a bottle cap.
Vitia, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like
they have that company. The guy,
yeah.
he's got it.
Yeah,
in fact, he messaged me, and the concept. I actually looked at it because of the functionality of it, right, and realizing that it was, there's a lot more that goes into where when it can actually deliver here. Sure. But there is some stuff like that. But I think that's fascinating because every time we get caught in a mindset of what we have to be successful, you can go, okay, look at these major league stars now. Look what they grew up with on the beach in the Dominican Republic, and this is where all of the concepts started to be developed. So.
Yeah, and the being able to go to a store, and this happened recently in a game. A girl got hit in the ankle because she was fouling her ball, and her mom went to really quick to Dick's and got an Evo Shield and. Right
That's
away.
It. There you go.
Over there's no Walmart, there's no CVS, there's nothing like that. They're like, literally, you're not going to get anything. If you don't have it there, you don't have it.
Yeah. So, so limited resources. Now the national team's watching you take care of the younger team.
Yes. Yeah, we in a nice way, because again, we start running. We stopped. They noticed right away that we're not stealing after we're up.
Right. Good.
We're not going
they appreciated that.
They did.
Nice job, man.
They did. Oh yeah, I'm not going to make.
We sent the right person.
Definitely. Good. Yeah. Oh my goodness. The last thing I want is to get them.
You didn't have come back go how many runs scored and how many runs it gets. We didn't know we're into posting that.
No.
Good for you.
But they didn't know. So right away. So somehow the second game was with the national team. They said, nope, it's okay. We're going to play you guys. And we did play them, and we actually held our own for the first few innings. It was like 0-0.
Now, a noticeable difference in strength, skill,
age, their kids,
maturity.
They brought
hold my
kids.
Baby, I'm going to go hit.
No, literally, they had their kids and their husbands on the actual sidelines. They're just grown women.
Yeah.
And this is what's interesting. They were the same kind of women that played in the '94, the '90s, and '94 Pan American games. Same girls. They're basically the same girls. Because after that was done with, softball was pretty much out of the Olympics. Cuba decided not to really deal with softball anymore, which means they're really behind now. So as soon as they heard that it's coming back, now they start making it mandatory for schools to have that available.
Really?
Yeah, because right now they're gonna be at least easily 10 years behind because they don't have. They just gave up on it. So the girls that were playing, the women that were playing, they've been doing this for years.
And they play because,
2 reasons. They love the game, and they definitely love their country. That the loving country game, part of that, yes, but also. There's a financial gain for them to be able to play the sport at a high level, because they do go. When we were there, we did not face their number one because she was in Italy playing. She was working, so therefore she went to Italy
feeding
to
her
work.
family. Right?
Yes, she was working.
Sure.
And even if you don't go that route, you only work for the national Cuban team. You do get a little bit more money than the next person out there who's fighting for everyday work, if you know what I mean.
So does that mean there could have been a couple players that you could see that they they were in it still for the business? Maybe the excitement wasn't there, or the passion, or did you see that the passion was still there and it's a great opportunity? Because sometimes when you're doing it, it's a means, to provide a living. You don't always have the passion attached.
Yeah, I think because of their situation, it's just intertwined. There's no buts about it. It's like they know that they can make a little money if they get better because they can go travel and they can do this. But the passion that they showed when they're playing, I mean, you can tell each and every player. Every time they would ground out against us, it was like the end of the world. Yeah. And I ground out. I should have hit the ball to the right field because with a runner on third, I had to get them going. You can tell that they are pride. There's
and that's good to hear, because the reputation for either South American or all Latin players isn't always about that, the passion. And sometimes it goes back to what you had mentioned earlier about your players that you brought over there. It's just how they're raised, so it's not a conscious thing. It's just, an awareness of manners, how you present yourself,
I see
your persona.
I see that here too right now, especially with the Olympics coming up, and me lucky enough to be part of I guess consultant, if you will, for the Puerto Rican national team. I can see that the girls playing for the Puerto Rican national team, they have a big pride. I mean, half of them don't speak Spanish, but they have a huge pride. Sure. The girl that was in Arizona and moved the pitcher. Right. I mean, I'm telling you, they want to win. Yeah. There's this passion. This passion of playing for your country is a big deal, and that's something that that'll be our next podcast, because I have news after that.
Well, it's interesting because it's given our American-based players a platform for their ethnicity and their blood. So the pride comes from back to what they know now about where they come from. Hopefully someday it turns into where there's actually more players from the country coming. But the fact is that we have more diversity in our sport and there's more representation internationally. The reality is that a lot of them are American-based, but it's getting Americans in touch with their history. So to me, it works. I mean, as long as there's an understanding of where you come from and you're not just prolonging your softball career.
And that's one of the reasons when we started talking earlier how about there's more to just softball and winning the games and being able to, to play with the big dogs. Right. That to me is the biggest part, that kind of opportunity to be able to actually play for a country. And that's why, like I said, I have a little thing to throw you nugget before the next time. I want to leave it to the next one. Good. But yeah, to be able to play for your country. All those girls over there, including my daughter and everybody was over there, they wanted to win, and they knew they were actually playing against a country. And that was just
different, right? So representing a country.
Representing. I mean, I think the second game we lost by 6 runs only. Again, this is a national team because it's young, and that's why the coach was so impressed. And that's why we got invited the second time, literally invited. When are you guys coming? Mm-hmm. Do we really want to practice with you guys? We want to play with you guys because you guys, we
want to experience this again with you, right?
Yes.
They want it right.
They got a lot of information that, we were able to talk to them. And even the plays, I remember we had one game, might be jumping a little bit, but we had one game that I wanted to set up with a coach at that time. Medina was a coach, and we basically swapped half of the players for them
you told
to come to me, and then vice versa. Right. So she was dealing with these girls that don't speak English, and at the beginning of the first inning was you have all our girls over here and all the Cuban girls over here in the same dugout, and within 2 innings or so, they're like talking and laughing because they understand the actual language of softball, the game. And I knew that. So I knew that, but I was more like, is it possible?
Excellent.
And I remember I was being a third, and I was coaching a third, and actually Luisa, the head coach over there, which is, by the way, the first ever catcher inducted to the International Hall of Fame. At that time, she was the coach. She told me, I want to do a play with a catcher, but in Spanish, she was like, but I don't know if she understands me. And I go, what play do you want to do? And she goes, well, the fake the second and throw the third to see if we can get the girl out. And this is his girl running because we're mixing matching. Mm-hmm. And it happened that catcher was my catcher. So I literally gave her a number. I said, oh, yeah, I gave her a number. And she literally did that, and she got the girl out at third.
So you made up your signs, you figure out how to communicate.
Yeah, like right away. And we also knew who couldn't slide because they didn't have
there you go.
They didn't have sliders.
Sure.
So it was fun. It was just insane, the experience that this girl's had.
So the competition was good. You held your own against the national team. So that whole thing, and then you ended up leaving some equipment behind, donating some things?
Yes, at that time, we had, I know Easton donated quite a bit of equipment. Jugs donated
Thank you, Easton and Jugs.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I did tell them that. Thank you, they did. Mm-hmm. And also, I know you actually helped us a lot with the uniform. Mm-hmm. Actually, gave us the uniform and the helmets. So, because I know that we were going to leave that there. In my heart, I knew we were going to leave that there. Obviously, the equipment was going to be there, but we can't really give anything out to this communist country. So the idea was, and I did tell the girls from the beginning because we had media day before we went over there, because we had people coming from the LA Times and everything. We told the girls, this from Easton, and these are things you guys. This is the gloves. This is your bats. This is yours. What you do with them is your business.
Right.
But I never told them anything. Right. And when they got back, they had sandals. They didn't have gloves. They didn't have anything.
Right.
They left everything.
Wow.
They gave it to the girls because they can see that
and they felt great about doing it.
They loved it. And the parents.
All of a sudden, you find you're running out of things to give.
In a way, yeah. And the parents, they were like, oh, yeah, it's the $300 bat. It's a almost $400 bat. I'm like, it's okay. I get my daughter another one over there. And these are not...
Because what it's worth to somebody that understands that, you can't put a price on knowing that you've left something back there. So I think that's great that you are the ambassadorship that you created and be able to help them out was great too. So the first trip was a great success. The last thing I want to mention about that trip is you had told me about the last day. So they wanted your girls to dress up.
Yes.
And kind of treat you to a day on the town?
And that was a surprise. That was a surprise from the actual travel person who we got along really well. And she said, hey, we're going to go to a nice dinner. And so I'm great. So I did tell the girls, hey, we were going to go at least one night. We're going to go out in a nice place, nice dinner, to see Havana, if you will, a nice place in Havana. But it was surprising that they literally, when we come out of the hotel, there was like 7 or 8 classic cars waiting for us, right. And we were like, "Oh, that's kind of nice. I wonder who, is it like a wedding or something?" I'm like, "No, that's for you guys." And we're like, "Pick a color, literally pick a color."
So different colors. So it was, this one here, but it was cars similar to that, right? In different colors,
colors, different. There was a Russian car too. It was really put together. I know that. What's interesting is the vibrant colors, and I remember asking the guy, hey, where do you get the paint? And I'm like, this is house paint.
So these are all older cars because they have no new cars.
No new cars. And older cars that some of them actually work diesel, and they were originally not made diesel. Some of them were actually. I remember that the guy opened which is I have never seen this. They opened the car of this 57 Chevy, I think it was, and there was I never saw a motor. I don't know how that works. There was like 2 things there. Intertwined with each other, and something that looks like a rotator.
Who knows?
I have no idea.
Pretty creative mechanics.
They have to, and they did.
They could probably work on some old trucks back here in the States.
Oh,
right?
they'll make a killing if they come over here. They'll make them run.
Yeah,
they'll make them run.
Yeah.
And, so that's a big
because they don't have auto parts.
No.
They don't have like you said earlier, go down to the sporting goods store and pick up.
Well, even if you do have a 57 Chevy, the chances of how are you going to get those parts? They're not easy.
Can you imagine the connectivity amongst them? Because hey, I need Manny. You got one of those. I need a bearing for I
literally had one of them explain. Yeah, I found this thing, and I had this guy who does welding. So I needed to get it to this side, so I can just put a bolt in it.
Yeah.
So it was like, so he get this. It's like
fascinating.
It's extremely interesting.
So the cars are all done up, looking nice. Your girls look beautiful.
Beautiful. We just took a ride for 45 minutes all over Old Havana,
and they were all convertibles.
All convertibles. It was a beautiful day, and we literally about 45 minutes to Old Havana and New Havana. We went to the Che Guevara house, and which is now a museum. And there's so many things that you just start looking like it's insane. We were able to be there. And then we went to a restaurant and had a beautiful dinner and dancing and everything. It was a beautiful night.
And I think of this, were you able to experience that with Patty? She go with you?
Yeah, I got really lucky because
and I apologize, Patty, we hadn't mentioned yet, but we talk about the creation of Media City and your wife and partner and
Patty.
So
everything to do with it because obviously she's my partner in crime, but she's definitely the one that pushes.
Has a lot of the visions, all of these things for Media City, everything that she sees for the young women, not only of your area, but for so when you mentioned about going out and being able to dance and do that, I saw you being able to do that with her.
Yes.
So
I was
awesome.
lucky. I was lucky because at that time Obama was still president, and it was a little bit easier to be able to take more people saying that they were going to do more things for the team. And I mean,
responsibility-wise or something.
And I was able to take my 10-year-old girl at that time as the back girl.
Because she was the journalist or something. Right?
She's the back girl. But I did. But my wife being an RN, she was a nurse.
Sure.
And Gatica was, at that time, Haley's Gatica's mom, Stephanie, she was a doctor, so she was a doctor. And
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we had all this. So we had the videographer. We had the equipment manager.
Everybody had a role.
Everybody. Even I know that some families took 2 family members, like an uncle and someone else. They took because it was a trip, and we had to give them a job.
Right.
So they all had a job.
Right,
You know?
right. Sure, but you gotta classify
but it worked out.
categorize it.
It
right.
worked out because we did what we had to do.
Yeah. So
it
finished
worked
off
out.
with a nice night, and
It was one of those things that you think about. It couldn't have gotten better. Even the weather, it was fantastic. Like they called me at the hotel in the morning and say, "Hey, we're going to have back-to-back games because it's going to rain at 1." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So instead, because the plan was to play from 9 to 11 or so, whatever, 7 innings, and then have lunch or hang out and then play again another game. That was the main plan for the 3 days. And the first 2 days were like, no, we're going to go back-to-back because of the rain. And it was on the dot. I'm telling you, it was on the dot. It's like, yeah, you got 5 minutes. And 5 minutes, like, it just pour. I'm like, is a hurricane happening here? Are we going to be able to play tomorrow? Yeah. No, in about 4 hours, it was the sun and it was dry as everything.
So for the types of weather that they experience, and it's good to know because they're lacking in some technology, so it's good to know that they have that and there's heads up because there's some quite interesting weather systems can take place out there. So that's
definitely. And in my world of the movie world, we avoid those places because if we cannot work,
it's money.
It costs money. Time is money. So that's why California is such an amazing because you can shoot here.
Round
so
the
over
clock
there,
shoots, right?
Pretty much. So now you have here a place that it does rain. It's obviously it's an island. So they do work around it. They have huge communication because that same field is their boys softball as well.
Okay.
They have guys softball.
Right.
Although we never saw them until my second time around. But they practice there.
When you were playing, were there people from either the area, the city that knew what was going on? That would start to watch and
the first day
kind of an interesting. It doesn't happen every day there.
Yeah, but here's the thing: since they don't have a lot of communication, so although we were in the news, not everybody has access to the news.
Good point.
But the word got around. That's the biggest thing.
Right.
So the first
you want to talk about word on the street?
Talk about that. I mean, literally word on the street. And so the first day, it was pretty quiet. But the place where the actual field is, it's a building where all their main athletes stay. Mm-hmm. So from swimming to vaulting to you name it, they all stay together. They all go to work together. They all go together. They have lunch times.
So they train for a certain amount,
a
certain time of the day, and then they work a certain amount. Right.
On there,
right?
Yeah,
that's also their place of employment.
It's basically their little world. Yeah. Their little world.
It's like the Japanese professional league. They play and they work for Toyota, but they also they play for Toyota. So everything's kind of
it's all together.
Right.
It's all together. Right. So we did have a lot of athletes coming to watch. We had this. I remember 5, 6, 7 basketball player. Watching what's going on over there. Watching.
Sure,
but the second day, we got more people coming. And then they ran out of chairs, so we had chairs around it, and they were very, it was fun. It was just because the atmosphere was fun, and the umpires were so animated. We're not talking about animated.
No,
bad.
First thing I think of some of those video clips or Naked Gun or different things. But yeah, they help create the experience.
They did, and they would in Spanish they would say, they would somehow use analogies or like, oh, you got the strike so close, as I'm close with my uncle, like some weird thing like that. But it was funny in Spanish and loud. Right. All this little things that they would use. It was to me. I think I was talking to Humble because I was translating from Humble, Tim, and I'm like, it's trust me, it's funny.
Well, look at his baseball background, your baseball background, my baseball background, and the professional baseball in America has been so mild-mannered, keep everything in reserve, don't celebrate. And we're in this thing right now where, so then the bat flip, we want to hit you in the head. But really what we're seeing, because there is more international appeal to this game now, is how other countries celebrate the game. And they're not doing it as a sign of disrespect. They're celebrating in the passion. And so,
And there's a fine line. And it's funny because I taught my daughter the baseball way of playing. Like she hits a home run, she gets her head down and she steps on home plate and she celebrates with the team. Right. I have never seen this whole excitement, which I think is great.
Which has now entered softball at the highest level. So,
but again, softball obviously is growing. Since 2015, I believe the ratings are going dramatically high. So it's a great thing. But there's a fine line, and I think MLB is finding that. There's the unwritten rules,
How are you taking it versus how is it meant? Because there are times when I mean something.
Time and place.
The way I'm pitching or right. So we're in a different place, and I think that's interesting. I want to transition towards where we're at this year. The last thing I want to ask you about that initial trip was, what do you think was the biggest takeaway for your players, for your kids there? What do you think they came back?
I think
knowing that they didn't know before.
Yeah, well, they didn't know where Cuba was on the map. That's one thing. And the biggest thing I believe they take is the wow factor, that they were present in a communist country. And I explained this to them in one of our talks, that people have died to keep that place a communist. Also, people have died to make that place free. And to this day, you have Cubans in Florida who has passed away and have left their bags ready. So when Fidel dies, so they can come back home. So they realized that they were in a place that they got a true once-in-a-lifetime experience to be able to go to a place like that and experience something that, they actually have talked back with some of the girls and like, I studied this in my class, my history class. We're talking about the Bay of Pigs. We're talking about that. I'm like, yeah, you were about 20 minutes away from there.
Now they're not getting the information to get an A on a test to move along in their academic career. It's a relatable topic to them, and I think that's very interesting because as we transition to this year or next year, you're going to create another trip, and so to heighten the visibility and kind of the information to inform people more about it, why is it a good experience? So hearing this past experience, what the story was like, what you guys experienced, but then why would people want to join on the next one? Because there's an opportunity that you're going to provide next summer? Yeah,
that's what we're working right now. Either, actually it's funny, look, I'm working with Italy, I'm working with Puerto Rico, trying to figure out.
You're making it happen. I love it.
Cuba is really writing, they got mad in a nice way. They got mad, hey, how come you didn't come this year? And I'm like, well, it happens that you guys are going to be in Peru trying to qualify when our girls
schedule-wise didn't work, right?
Right. So it's going to be really hard. But the key thing here is that experience something that you would never experience in your lifetime unless you actually are there. And that's something that I thought was going to be a great experience. It turned out to be an amazing, unforgettable experience that we go back and we talk about it. We have pictures like, oh my goodness, this is amazing.
So when you launch this, you will, what is it? You take a group of about how many girls up to 12, about what?
About 12. No, I didn't want to take that many because again, you go on a trip, you're going to go play.
Right.
So
You've got to manage people.
Yes.
Sure.
So my thing was
and it's
12.
for how long?
It's a whole week.
Spend a week in Cuba.
A whole week, one weekend and the rest of the week. And
what's the cost per family if they were to provide their own funding for it?
Yeah, actually, it was $2,500 per person, but everything is included.
So that's it. $2,500. That's it.
That's it. That's insurance, which I had to use. I'll tell you about that later, because I have to go to a hospital. Not a bad thing. It's just I have to go. And the food, 3 meals a day, hotel, 4-star hotel. It's like it was to me. It was like wow, because I thought at the beginning, well, again, we don't know.
Right.
And when you go, like the food and the transportation, because we have our own driver, our own bus. We have our own bus for 100 people. Beautiful air conditioning bus that we keep our gear all the time. We know the driver. We keep our gear there. Like it's such a convenience. Like just insane how they were so accommodating to us, and everything, including like I said, the trip, everything,
all included,
truly inclusive. Yeah.
So if I think of create perspective for one of our couple of listeners out there, think of the last time you took a college recruiting trip. So your plane tickets. And I say like we call it an unofficial. So you're going to a camp because you want to build a relationship nowadays. You want to see a coach, but there are families upon families spending money to put their kids on the market. So the average cost of one of those trips is anywhere from $1,200 to $2,500 to $3,000.
Easy.
Just take one of those trips and think of the international experience and everything that Manny's talked about. You just slide it over here or get creative. Our players here, you mentioned the junior Olympic level. We are dealing with junior Olympic level athletes. So our story, we don't have enough young ladies that go out and get their own funding. Talk to people that need tax write-offs. If you're part of a 501c3, a nonprofit situation, we all need to write checks, pay taxes, and do different things. So you could offset costs, but you could also slide over some of the softball expenses that it's already in your routine, and then it's a year away. But start to put this on your calendar as something because I think this is something that's going to continue to.
Yeah, and there's a way, and there's definitely a way to make it happen. This trip gave us, Patty and I we talked about this, and we were able to create this 501c that we originally had it for our organization, and we have changing it right now to call ELA, which is ella means her, which is empowering Latina leaders in athletics.
Wow.
I'm very proud of this. My
goodness.
Oh, yeah.
Is that you and Patty? Or is that?
Yeah, that's a lot of Patty, too. Because we've noticed in our area, that, how many girls have a chance to be able to go to an official visit, which, again, this very well, that If you go over there, it's kind of letting them know, hey, I truly want to be here.
Right. But not everyone has the resources to do it. And you have families, again, a little digression, but you have so many families in softball that if they don't have guidance, something we try to provide, and they're like, well, we've got to give our daughter that same advantage that their daughter has because she's on those trips. Now they're going to these they're getting to the point where it's just not reasonable in what they're doing to themselves, and it's not a good experience for them. So
I agree.
We can create some opportunities for some people in those situations.
I totally agree, and we're kind of writing a little story, if you will, trying to make it work, trying to basically tell the people, okay, this is how it works. This is the ABCs on it. You might want to do this, you might want to do that, but at the end, it's your decision.
Right.
But we're going to give you all
that guidance,
information.
man. That guidance, especially when it's a guidance through experience. Because look at where you're at now, 5 years in the firecracker culture versus 5 years ago. So that experience is valuable. And in the end, we want someone of more experience as a doctor, a pilot, a soldier, or whatever it is that's seen more things. Because their advice to us can keep us moving forward rather than the same learning curve that they went through. I think that's invaluable right now.
Their knowledge is priceless.
Right.
That experience is priceless, and that just being able to get that. That's a little bit extra. That's a little thing that that I do believe after. Yes, we're trying to win every time. My team, we're trying to win. And
we're out there to compete. But
always,
all of these layers is what really makes it.
I 100% agree.
Yeah, well, you're doing a great job of that. So what would, if somebody was interested, this kind of caught their ear? What do they keep an eye on your website?
I'm gonna keep Firecrackers. I would say the Firecracker website because as soon as everything happens, I go through you. So as soon as
we'll post something on our website. Now, what about Hollywood Firecrackers Hollywood website? It's still Media City, I believe. It's still Media City.
We're trying to. Yeah, we're little by little, because we have to do this whole legal thing, which is with DBA here, so I can change the 501s and keep it separate, so we can help.
So keep an eye on the Firecracker social media.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of tagging, different things, stuff like that. So and you're going to present more information as things solidify. We're just doing this a year out in advance so people can start just planting the seed in their head.
And the story, I believe the story's still on the website. And that thing, if we wrote this basically day by day, and they can actually read it. It's a great read. Literally, you just get
it's on the archives of our website, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Firecrackersoftball.com.
And it's one of those things, and going back to it, I've talked to girls that when, again, they had that call with the coach, the coach of college, they have something really interesting because my daughter, they wanted to, the first thing, so you went to Cuba. How was that?
Sure. Well, think of how that stands out on your resume,
it's
right?
Just different.
As a life experience, right?
It's different. I tell my girls, listen, when you're talking to a college coach, they don't care. Honestly, they don't care about how much you like them or how much you play softball, how much about. They don't really. They know you like them because they're calling you.
Right.
They know you like them because they seen your video.
Right.
And they're going to ask you questions. How's your life? They're going to be talking about you because they want to get to know you. Yeah. And lucky some of these girls being able to say, "Oh yeah, I went to Cuba, Havana." They throw it out there like
it's just a matter of fact.
It was 45 minutes later. Talking about
so it's like we say this about sometimes one or two of our particular trips, but in 30 years they're not going to remember 98% or 99% of the scores, all the things that happen in these hundreds of games that we're playing, but they're never going to forget Cuba.
That's it.
It's like river rafting in Colorado. All these games, everyone goes to Colorado, but nobody ever forgets what it's like river rafting.
Or the Butterfly Museum.
Absolutely.
I find that amazing.
Yeah, so stuff like that. And in the end, I think that's the bigger part of our responsibilities. We're in the moment with business softball, but I just appreciate the perspective, the learning curve that you've had over the 5 years, the things that you're bringing to the table. Again, you see how I watch how these cultures are being built, but it's the experience is really the key. So in closing, anything else you want to share? You want to plug any like Netflix specials you have going on? Or you got so what do you got a minute or so to anything you want to put out there?
I guess you could see the first season of Real Rob on Netflix. I produced that one. Check it out.
There you go.
If you want to see me acting really silly, just Google my name. You'll see videos of me acting really silly.
And your name is? Say it so we can hear it again.
Manolo, like the shoes, Manolo Blanc. Manolo Travieso.
I can't even.
And and the thing is that I'm gonna leave you with a tease, which is stay tuned for our travel sisters from different organizations getting together very, very soon.
Bringing things together with other organizations. What a concept. You mean we're not building the walls higher with other organizations?
No, we're putting a flag in it.
I love it.
We're actually going to put a flag. It's a happening thing. I talked to you a long time ago about it. Yeah. But I'm the kind of person that until it actually happens, I don't bring it up.
Right, sure.
So, but it's actually happening. So I'm very excited about that. That's the next time we'll be sitting here together.
I love it.
We'll be talking about that.
Well, you let me know. We'll bring you back in. Manny, thanks for your time. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. We'll see everybody next time.